Remembering Gordon Moore's contributions to computing. Is usefully wrong the same thing as it's not a bug, it's a feature? And an interview with Vicky Bruns and Jason Slagle hot off the heels of JCDC's Planning Summit. That and more on today's episode of MSP Dispatch.
This episode is presented by MSP GeekCon 2023, a conference for MSPs by MSPs. Occurring May 21st through the 23rd, 2023 in Orlando, Florida, this two-day event is built around the journey of technical growth from Tier 1 to Tier 3. Visit mspgeekcon.com for more information.
Good morning and welcome to the March 28th episode of MSP Dispatch, your source for news, community events, and commentary in the MSP channel. I'm Matt Fox, standing in for Ray Orsini, and today I have a very special co-host with us, Jason Slagle. How are you doing this morning, Jason?
I am great. How about yourself?
I am doing well. I had a pretty nice weekend. Last time we had an episode, Tony and I talked a little bit about nostalgia, I think, in general. We showed a video of someone who had gotten a Sound Blaster 16 ISA card working on a modern motherboard. We talked a little bit about some of the circuit board work I was going to do this weekend. And it was amazing to get such a great response from our audience. There was that everyone, I think, had a memory that they wanted to share. We had people share in Discord and reach out over LinkedIn. And you turned out to be one of the folks today. And I was really just pleasantly surprised and so happy that you came to me with this comment. So let's talk about what it is that you have that's from the same era.
Yeah, I have a Sound Blaster AWE32, right? Called AWE32. It has memory on it that can hold essentially sound samples that you can then play with MIDI. So it's actually like a synthesizer almost on a card. It's really kind of cool.
It's kind of cool, and it has the Sound Blaster kind of lineage attached to it, which I think is something that anyone that's been doing computing for maybe the past 25 years or so, there's a special place in our hearts for those things. You know, I think we all grew up with wanting the Sound Blaster or having the Sound Blaster, having a friend with Sound Blaster, and maybe hearing Quake for the first time and getting all psyched about it. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but those are the bright moments of technology from, say, my youth that really kind of pushed me into a career like this.
Oh yeah, 100% for sure. I spent a non-zero amount of time making it work and then making it work again under Linux. It came from my daily driver PC back when I was like 14. So we're talking like 1994. And it definitely ran Linux on it most of the time. So I have looked to maybe donate it to somebody that could use it a little more than I do. I just don't have as much time as I used to for those nostalgic old school projects like that.
Well, we've got bigger problems to talk about, which we're going to get into in this episode. But really quickly, before we move on, I got two things. One, what was your first distro of Linux that you used? I mean, you mentioned 1994, so I had to ask.
Slackware 1.01 with kernel 0.99.13, I believe it was. It was definitely before kernel 1.0.
Oh boy, I would love to be able to answer that question with the same level of detail. I'm just going to say that it was a 4-pack CD in one of those big old boxes from back in the day that said Slackware 96. So whatever Slackware 96 translates into with regards to maybe some semantic versioning, that's where I got my start. And there's just something about hearing other people say Slackware that makes me so happy. Now, before we get into the new... So go ahead, please.
No, I ran that same Slackware machine up until about 2016. I hand upgraded it like all the way through libc 5 to glibc, and it ran for a long time.
That's good. How do I put this? Well built and well configured equipment can last a very long time. The issue we have nowadays is not really related to, say, processing power, as it is the types of vulnerabilities that begin to stack up as time goes on. Now, before we go, just because I feel like I like to bring everything full circle from last week's time that I had talking with Tony, I talked about circuit boards, and this is actually the keyboard that I started working on. It's a split ergo, and I'm going to say it right now so that I can actually follow through. This is going to an author friend of mine, Eli, out in Los Angeles, and he's going to pen, or I guess clickety-clack, his 4th book with it. So be on the lookout for that, buddy. Cool. Now, We've spent a lot of time talking this morning. It's hard not to. I love being here and chatting with you about technology and maybe looking into the past a little bit. But you know what? We need to get back to the present with some news.
Intel co-founder Gordon Moore has died at age 94. Best known as one of the co-founders of Intel and creator of Moore's Law, he gave a lot to our industry. Moore's Law is the thought that every roughly 2 years, the number of components or transistors on an integrated circuit doubles. That has held mostly true since he created the law in 1965. Originally, it was approximately every 1 year. It was later revised to every other year, and it still holds true today. Moore later became known for his charitable work when him and his wife established the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, which donated more than $5 billion to charitable causes. The foundation focuses on environmental conservation, science, patient care, and projects in the San Francisco Bay Area. Since its founding in 2000, it has donated more than $5.1 billion. He's survived by his wife of 50 years, 2 sons, and 4 grandchildren. So what do you have to say about that, Matt?
I have to say that it's always sad when you hear of the loss of a life in any respect. Yeah. But given that Gordon Moore lived a full 94 years, was married for 50 of those, and is remembered not only for what he has done for the world in a way, but living through, two I believe, children, you said.
Yep.
It sounds like a life that was well lived. And if the only thing he was able to provide to us was Moore's Law, he's already gone above and beyond. That's the way I see it.
It wasn't only that, right? He was one of the co-founders of NM. Let me make sure I get it right here.
Yeah.
NM Electronics, right, which later went on to become Intel, right? So this is one of the founders of Intel that went on and basically in the 60s assumed that every year originally, the number of transistors on a package would increase. I know I saw some general grumblings recently that we're starting to hit the theoretical limit of that, where the transistor size is getting so small that without the next essentially breakthrough in technology, our ability to shrink them anymore is very, very quickly approaching the end, right? We're down to like a 5 nanometer technology package now, right? So we're getting down to the point where these things are going to be like mere atoms wide.
Yeah, but first of all, that just the idea of that, I think, is something that still kind of astounds me that we're able to work at such a small scale. But yeah, everything that he has done with regards to the beginning of Intel and Moore's Law have been things that have dictated the technology that you and I have worked with throughout our entire lives. Yeah. And I think that we have to thank him for that very much. Yeah. So rest in peace.
Yeah.
Really.
Rest in peace.
94 years is not bad.
It is definitely not a bad run.
Microsoft accidentally revealed why people don't trust tech companies. Written by Chris Matischuk for ZDNet.com. Microsoft recently launched Copilot, an AI system designed to help users complete tasks and take some weight off their minds. Now, according to Microsoft VP Jared Spataro, Copilot can sometimes be usefully wrong, providing an idea that's not perfect, but still gives users a head start. Now, the tech industry, it's one I've been a part of for 23 years, so I feel like I'm included in this statement, often operates under the assumption that everything that we do is done to make the world a better place. But now and then, new technology can be a bit counterproductive, especially when we don't realize what's going on. Now, because humans, you and I, are impressionable, people may be quick to embrace new technologies without considering potential downsides. And that's a little bit of what can be happening here. Ultimately, companies like Microsoft claim to be responsible when providing new offerings. And maybe sometimes we need to look at the fine print a little bit more often than we do. Now, Jason, when I read this article and I saw the headline of Microsoft accidentally revealing why people don't trust tech companies, all I could think is, what did Clippy do this time? That's all I could think. But clearly, this is a little bit more. It comes down to being an issue of creative wording. Now, you may remember there was a time, and I'm pretty sure it was said by someone at Microsoft that that's not a bug, it's a feature. I don't even know if that has truthful origins at this point, because I've heard it used in so many different places. But I don't take the idea of something being usefully wrong too differently from that. It feels like a little bit of a cop-out. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things that we're going to see because these are models trained on what programming languages look like, right? It is, of course, going to occasionally be usefully wrong, because what it's going to do is it's going to take constructs that seem like they should be accurate based on information it knows, and it's just going to produce an output that looks like it should be right. I'm not sure you can get around that with the current iteration of the AI stuff.
You know what? I don't think it is something that we can easily get around, because I think it's something that as humans we do all the time. Sometimes we have a piece of information that we consider to be truthful and we base our future actions based on it. And sometimes we realize that those details that we were working with were not exactly as accurate as they could be. And I like to think of that as being a mistake. Yeah, you know, mistakes do happen. But when you trust the system to come to you with accurate information, that's when things get messy. And I'll just say, I tried using ChatGPT to get some notes for one of the articles that we're talking about here together today. The one related to and everyone, you'll hear about it in a little bit, the Acropolis vulnerability. And I'll tell you that the Microsoft, help me out here, Jason, I'm not the great with grace with terms. The ID for a vulnerability, the ID number was in. Thank you. The CVE number was actually incorrect in the AI generated bullet points that were provided to me. And had I trusted it completely, that news that we delivered today would not have been as accurate as it could be. So I'm happy that I took another look at what I had done. And I think that's the important part of anything with AI. Allow it to do what you want, but always check the results. Don't just run with them as if they're 100% correct, because that's where things can get messy.
Yeah, man. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the AI got the year right. So it probably got CVE-2023, and it probably just totally made up the last 4 digits because it knows, or 5 digits, because it knows that's what they look like, but it's not going to have enough knowledge to be able to actually pull out the CVE. Even with current data, it's not going to be smart enough to do that because it's an AI model. It's not a search engine.
Well, I'm happy that it was a random combination of numbers, if that's what it turned out to be, and they didn't go like the Mel Brooks 1, 2, 3, 4 method for the CVE, because that would have just had a level of hilarity that would have been a bit scary at the same time. But I think that also does sum up the title of this article. So, wow. I don't know what to say anymore about that. And you know what? We've got bigger things to talk about today. We've got an interview coming up. So how about we get right into that right now?
That sounds great.
So Jason, I heard that you were at JCDC's planning summit last week, and I was hoping to have you on to talk about it today. But you know what? I think we got someone better.
I would agree with that. Yeah, it was a really good time. I didn't know what to expect going into it. I was asked kind of at the last minute to join, but I am very glad I went, and I'm involving myself with planning in the future with them.
That's fantastic, and I'd love to hear more from you. But you know what? We have a guest today. We have Vicky from ConnectWise, who's a manager of third-party ecosystems, and she's a part of JCDC as well. And I'd love to hear from both of you. I'm going to step back because I wasn't at the event, but I do know that we've got some great questions that we've got lined up. So let's just get into this.
Well, hey guys, it's so nice to be on the show with you today. I'm a huge fan of MSP Dispatch. This is where I get my MSP news every week. And so I feel like I'm a little bit of a groupie joining you here, but it's a pleasure to be here to talk about the summit.
And then really quickly, before we get into things, I'm just going to officially invite you to our Discord. If you didn't know that we have an MMM Discord where we talk about our stories all the time, it's fantastic.
I did hear about it, but now that I'm receiving an official invitation to join, heck yes, I will be there.
You heard it here, folks. You heard it first. Heck yes. So let's get right into this. Let's talk JCDC a little bit. And as much as I love acronyms, how about we explode that into the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative? What are we talking about here, folks?
So I'll take that one. That was pretty easy. So JCDC, or the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, is a coordinated effort between CISA and private and federal and SLTT, right? So the idea is to create a collaborative, hence that part of its name, to attempt to share information and to raise awareness of security and cyber things that affect all of us, right? So it's a good opportunity for a public-private relationship between those entities.
Yeah, and to build on that, it was great being there. I know Jason and I sat together in a lot of the sessions during the summit, and to build on that, it was really great to have, I guess, a lot of our stakeholders that are within our industry there at at CISA's office in person with the federal government. It just goes to show you that there really is a focus on working within our industry and collaborating effectively within our industry as well with the big RMM vendors, right? Like ConnectWise and Kaseyo Datto and Enable. And then Jason being a representative of the MSP space, we also had some other MSP partners that were there as well. But yeah, it was really great to be able to kind of just connect and understand what this is about. The first thing I just have to say, because I feel like this is something that I can mention, when we walked in, they had a swag table, which of course, if you've been to enough MSP events, there's always swag. But I actually have my water bottle right here of an awesome CISA sticker that they offered. Yes. Yep. So anyways, it just kind of goes to show you my interpretation walking into this meeting was that it was going to be very buttoned up and it was going to be very formal. And it was not what I expected, which I think was kind of a good thing.
Yeah. I think just to interrupt, one, in case you didn't notice, Jason loves stickers, as you could see from directly behind him. So that's very important. And two, if something is buttoned up and very, very official, I don't think we'd see Jason there, because Jason's the guy that keeps everything to the point and is very real. So knowing that he was at the event makes me excited for the sake that the event happened in the first place. Just want to get that out there.
I was very afraid that it was going to be like, the stereotypical stuffy government type, and I was going to be completely out of my element and have to be absolutely on my best behavior, because I have been known to say things that I think without a whole lot of filter there. As it turns out, the people from both JCDC and CISA, they were very, very interested in what we had to say and the feedback we could give, and they were very receptive to it. So I think some of the struggle that they have is because it's government tends to not pay for anything, right? So the only people that have a voice are the people that are willing to put the money up to show up there, right? So you end up with representation of gigantic organizations. And so we're pretty small. We're a mid-sized MSP at best, right? But it was important to me to actually show up in person so that we could have some sort of representation of, the guts or the core of the MSP community, which is the small, medium-sized MSP, right? So that we had a voice at the table.
Yeah, it was very collaborative. I think they're coming into it with that type of mindset of they're not the experts of our industry. We are. Yeah. And they want to work with us to be able to foster change in a way that's not going to be detrimental to our industry, which I think is super important.
So a thing that I think is relatively important to note is I brought awareness as to why some of these things matter to them, right? Like they had no idea that some of the decisions they're making and documents they're sending out affect things like insurance for us, right? That we have insurance carriers directly leaning towards documents that CISA is producing as, guidance. And when they use things like wrong terminology for the wrong software, it really hurts, well, one, their credibility amongst those of us in our space that know what the right terminology is, as well as our industry as a whole, because they make decisions based on incorrect data.
Yeah. And I wanted to kind of take a step back for a minute, because I know we were talking about this a little bit beforehand, but the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative is part of CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which is part of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And so the JCDC is a relatively new concept for CISA, that Jen Easterly, the director of CISA, rolled out at Black Hat in 2021. And so the concept of JCDC is relatively new. And I think it's really neat that as a newer, I guess, segment of the federal government, that this was something that came up so quickly and that it's something that they really want to work with us on. I think one of the other things that was really neat coming out of this is the relationships that we foster with the federal government from here on out, and being able to make sure that that goes downstream all the way to the MSP is making sure that it's a bidirectional sync when it comes to finding threat intel or information that we can pass down more quickly. What are threats that are a higher matter of urgency that we need to pass along? And then where do we do it? What is the forum for that? So those were, I think, some of the collaborative efforts that Jason was talking about. Those are some of the things that we were trying to kind of figure out. I don't think we're going to figure it out yet, but it's definitely a great starting point from the summit.
All things take time to figure out, and everything has to have a beginning. And that's what I'm hearing, a beginning to some fantastic collaboration between entities of different types across our country for the single goal of being able to communicate the importance of security, what's necessary, best practices, and potentially some resources. Are there types of resources that we can expect to see come from this over time?
Yeah, so
yes. Go ahead.
CISA.gov, you can already go there. And there's great resources that you can access. But I think the goal, again, is to figure out what is a way, as a vendor, speaking with my vendor hat on, what is a way to make sure that we're taking things that may pop up on a website, at CISA.gov, and how do we make sure that we are letting our partners know, hey, this is really important to you. You need to make sure that you are reading this.
Yeah, and to add to that a little bit, they have made a commitment to sending some of these documents and resources they send out to the planning team to kind of edit and craft some of the messaging there to try to make sure that it resonates with our industry.
I got to say, that's fantastic. I think that the concept of JCDC is reminiscent of some things like interoperability groups when it comes to programming languages, where you're having open communication with different groups of individuals that have different points of views and different needs, but all have the common goal of making sure that what we work with and how we bring functionality or support or anything to the types of businesses that we support is done in a secure manner, a repeatable manner, in a manner that we could all agree is the right way of doing things. And I wanted to thank both of you for being a part of this conversation today. This was, as much as I hate using terms like this, enlightening for me. And I'm going to have to go back to JCDC's website and have another read. And I suggest that everyone watching this do the same thing. We're going to have links in the show notes. And I sense we're going to have more news on the way from this organization as time goes by.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. I know that the other thing, too, that I just wanted to mention, because I think this is really important, is that how do we make sure that end clients are also paying attention to this stuff, and that you don't have to be afraid of the federal government. They want to come, they want to help. How do we make sure that it's going all the way down the supply chain to the end users, right? Making sure that they have this information as well. So
absolutely.
Yeah,
if things don't make it from point A to point B, you have to question how effective they're going to be. So that's a critical part of this process. And I thank you both for dedicating your time towards the summit and the work that you do. And this is normally the time where we would say, hey, you know what, Victoria, it's been so great having you here today, but you're going to do the sign off with us. And that's a lot of fun. So let's get to that.
Let's do it.
Good.
In my first notable, Microsoft pushes out-of-band security updates for Windows snipping tool Flaw, written by Lawrence Abrams for Bleeping Computer. Microsoft has released an out-of-band security update for a critical vulnerability in the Windows snipping tool, and one we covered on last Friday's episode of MSP Dispatch. The vulnerability, tracked as CVE-2023-28303, affects all versions of supported Windows, including Windows 10, 11, and Windows Server. Microsoft is classifying this vulnerability as low with regard to severity because it requires an uncommon user interaction and several factors outside of an attacker's control. That said, security researchers have warned that the number of public images impacted by this vulnerability may be high, with VirusTotal alone hosting over 4,000 affected images. Updates, they're good. Please update your systems as soon as possible. Do not fall victim to an issue like this. In my next notable, Miami tech company in talks to replace FTX as the new sponsor for the Miami Heat Arena. Written by Douglas Hanks and Vinod Sriharsha for the Miami Herald. CISA is in talks with Miami-Dade County to become the new naming rights sponsor for the Miami Heat Arena. The previous sponsor, FTX Crypto Exchange, signed a $135 million naming rights agreement in 2021, but it collapsed after fraud allegations and criminal charges against the then CEO, Sam Bankman-Fried. A bankruptcy court voided the county's FTX agreement in January, and the facility is temporarily called the Miami-Dade Arena. Sources familiar with the talks say a deal is close with CISA, with the administration hoping to get a final agreement before the county commission at its April 4th meeting. CISA would be the arena's third corporate sponsor behind American Airlines and FTX. No details of a potential agreement have been released, including how much CISA wants to pay for the sponsorship agreement.
In my first notable, Splashtop acquires Foxpass to broaden its security portfolio, written by Splashtop Inc. for the Global Newswire. Remote access software provider Splashtop has acquired Foxpass, a provider of cloud-based security solutions for servers, databases, and networks to expand its security portfolio. The acquisition allows them to integrate Foxpass's security products and features into its own products, giving its customers a comprehensive remote access solution and enhanced security measures. It'll leverage the Foxpass technology to add advanced features such as identity and access management, as well as multi-factor authentication and LDAP integration. The acquisition will also enable Splashtop to better serve its enterprise customers with more complex security requirements. Splashtop will retain Foxpass employees and invest significant resources into the product roadmap. Terms of the deals were not disclosed. My next notable, GitHub takes down a repository containing Twitter source code, written by Kevin Herder for Gizmodo.com. A portion of Twitter's source code was leaked on GitHub, exposing valuable intellectual property. Twitter has asked the U.S. District Court to identify and subpoena the person responsible for the leak, who goes by free speech enthusiast, according to CNBC. GitHub declined to comment on the leak, but pointed Gizmodo to the public DMCA takedown notice filed by Twitter. Elon Musk has previously announced that Twitter's recommendation algorithm and its source code will be open sourced starting March 31st.
And in today's resource of the week, NinjaOne's Bootcamp 2023. Now, Ninja released this bootcamp earlier in the year, and we are coming up at the end of the first quarter, but that doesn't mean that the information in here is any less amazing than it was at the start of the year. So if you haven't checked this out yet, I suggest you check it out at ninjaone.com/rebootcamp-2023. We'll make sure that those links are in the show notes as well. Now, there are 2 different tracks available, and both take place over a 4-week period. The first track is about making your job easier. It's about There are 2 tracks available, both taking place over a 4-week period. The first track is about making your job easier and includes a basic crash course on their tools, how to improve patch management skills, and achieving high efficiency monitoring and automation, among other advanced tips. The second track is more about business growth and includes conversations around defining your KPIs, packaging. The second track is more about growing your business and focuses on topics like defining KPIs, packaging and pricing out your services, client management, as well as my favorite area these days, sales and marketing. Again, this is NinjaOne's Bootcamp 2023. We suggest you check it out. And in today's community feedback, we heard from Kevin in our Discord. I sold all my Sound Blaster 16s, and I just sold an AWE 32 with 2 megs of memory on it. Sounds like you just sold some memories. Also from Kevin, fun episode, guys. Love it. This is one of my primary methods of keeping up with our stupid, fast-paced industry. Really appropriate, the work you all put into making this. Thank you, Kevin. And the feedback we get from you and from everyone else, whether it's on YouTube or some other social channel or our Discord, is very much appreciated. There are plenty of amazing upcoming events taking place across the community, so let's see what's happening this week. Today and tomorrow, we've got an in-person event, PAX 8 Security Bootcamp, Kansas City, Missouri. On the 29th at 12 p.m. Eastern, the Build It Better discussion group presented by Everything MSP. March 30th to the 31st, we have another in-person event, Millionaire Mastermind Peer Groups Quarter 1, Orlando, Florida. And coming from the MSP Media Network this week, we have tomorrow at 10 a.m. our 4th episode of AI Roundup with Phil Buck. This Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, we have the Tech Bar Podcast episode 55 with Marvin B. of Uncle Marv's IT Business Podcast. And of course, every Thursday and Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, we have the MSP Dispatch presented by the MSP Media Network.
Hey, I'm Powerhouse Ray.
And I'm Super Cousin Danny.
And we're the hosts of
The Tech Bar.
Pull up a stool with us every other Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern for drinks, jokes, and games with your friends in the MSP channel.
So folks, how'd you like today's show? If you liked it, please hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, go ahead and hit it 3 times. Any odd number typically works best for me, so just go ahead with it. If you want to hear more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on your YouTube or your favorite podcatcher. Now, I may have mentioned it a couple of times this episode, but did you know that we have a Discord where we post our stories all week? We do. And anyone that wants to come and join the conversation can. Also, be sure to follow us on social media at MSP Media TV. Have any questions? Email news@mspmedia.tv for answers in the next episode, or leave us a voicemail at 833-MSP-NETWORK. That's 833-MSP-NETWORK. All right, so Jason, Victoria, thank you so much for joining us today. Jason, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you as a co-host, and I look forward to doing this again. And Victoria, it was great to meet you today and hear everything about JCDC, and we're going to talk again soon because I want to know more about ConnectWise. I think that's the only vendor of a PSA I've never had a really good conversation with anyone at for. So we're going to find time. I don't even care if it's a PSA conversation. We're going to talk about the MSP industry because it's something that we all very much care about and want to see just continue to grow. So until then, folks, thank you so much. Have a good one. Take care of yourselves and each other.
See you later.
This is where you say goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for having me on.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.
Brought to us by NPR, Intel co-founder and philanthropist. That's going to take me a second to say that word. I may just skip it. Okay. He later became known for his philanthropy. Okay.
Microsoft accidentally revealed why people don't I'm sorry. I just love this. Reading this is going to be pleasurable. Give me a second here.
Yeah, I agree completely. Right. Like the AI is looking at, well, CVEs follow this format. They know it's this year. So I'm guessing it got the 2023, right? I apologize for the beeping here. Actually, if we can hold for 1 minute, it looks like they're moving the boom lift and it'll be done.
Work never stops.
What's this guy doing? Like he's driving a boom lift down the road with the boom up. Hold on.
He's ghost riding the boom whip. That's what he's doing.
It's not spinning. Okay, he's leaving, so it'll quiet down here in a second. He's just driving down the middle of the road. This is wacky.
This is going to be an outtake. This is beautiful. Just Jason's like, that guy's going to hit something. It's going to end up on YouTube.
Yeah, he's about to hit a light pole.
No, please.
He's got it on the truck now, so he's just putting the boom down, and I think it'll stop. That was insane. This guy, he had the thing. It was literally inches from my window. Okay, I think he's done. Nope. No, it's beeping again. Damn it.
I think we should just roll with it, and we make this whole thing into a little joke thing in the blooper, so people know why we were kind of trying to keep a straight face while reporting this, and that's it. We'll just let it explain itself.
I think we're to the point now where I think he's pretty close to done. Okay, so I'm going to go back to where I was.